What's up, y'all? What's good? It's your girl Morgan, and I'm here with my best friend Toby here on episode 5 of the Pochè Pour Up. And I am Morgan, one of the co-founders of Poché Design Studio, one of the mothers of this beautiful thing we got going on. My official acting title in this organization is also Chief Creative Officer, which means many things, but it generally means I have brand oversight and just am a puzzle piece maker and one of the strategy players in this thing that we got going on.
Period.
What about
for almost 5 years. I'm Tobi, also co-founder, co-mother of this beautiful spaceship that we have going on over here. My operational role is CEO, so just like bossing people around.
She's great. And she does so much more than that. She's
I do,
great.
but that's a good summary. Yes. Just bossing people around and being people. I'm very good at those things, so call me if you need somebody to boss you around. Or
cheers.
Cheers! What are we pouring up right now? Actually, what's in our cup?
Our cup is the mysterious cup Toby poured me.
We're being very classy, guys. Classy. So we're sipping on some Chardonnay today. So, as two baddies in this industry, in this office, in our company, something that has been kind of in the atmosphere and people are talking about is that it seems that every time there's like, they always want to pit two bad bitches against each other. And I really hate that. And what is specifically I'm talking about is just, this is where this thought originated from, but we're definitely going to expand more on it. So, Just Hilarious, Lauren LaRosa, both co-hosts at the Breakfast Club, and there's just some conflict that's happening in there. But it's also this interesting experience of, it's almost like they cannot be two of us in the workplace. Like, what's up with that? Have you, so it's interesting because we obviously we start talking before we start shooting. But as we're talking about it and thinking about like, oh, I've had a Black woman boss or I've had a Black woman coworker. I've never had a Black woman coworker. Interesting enough, I've always been the only.
Yeah. Sad.
I mean, until Poché, until we created this really cool company. Yeah. But
yeah, I think we talked about that before, but yeah.
I had the boss that I spoke about, the influencer that I worked for. So I had a Black woman boss, and then the person that was between me and her was also kind of my supervisor. So she wasn't like my peer co-worker. So it's interesting thing about how my experiences happened with this, but how does yours look like? Have you had a Black coworker? You don't have to obviously say too much about
right.
Now, like just and like also like a Black woman boss, and like what has been your experience of maybe conflict like has arisen between y'all in the workplace or manufactured conflict that places y'all on the other opposite sides of each other? I'm curious.
For me, my honest to God, like most real experience working with Black women was my experience in Delta, which, you know, is you learn so much. And there's a reason that young Black Greeks tend to be successful because like Delta is a business. They'll tell you that first. And so like working with
corporation.
Yeah. working with like just top tier number one Black women, like that does something to your spirit in a way that I cannot describe. And like I literally crave to get back to it. It's one of my biggest goals. And you know that. Like I've been trying to get back into Delta, but it's hard. But that was one of my like realest experiences working with Black women, because it's like, oh wow, to move them out. You have to hire us. That's
but
crazy.
Was there conflict? I'm sure there was.
I mean, absolutely. I don't really talk about it.
That's okay. We respect it. We don't have to talk about the actual cause of the conflict. I'm curious about the reactions, how you continue to work together, or
right. And I feel like what was great about it is that at an early age, because we're 20, 21, 22 when we're on the yard, which feels like a lifetime ago because it was.
It was.
You know, like,
like it was. Not that you're old.
But yeah, we up there.
Undergrad was a while ago.
But yeah. But what I loved about my experience working with Black women, especially on a university level, and this is everyone in and around all of the organizations that I was a part of. Like, even at a PWI, was so protected by Black women. And so when they asked a lot of me, it was not a problem. If there was a conflict, there was a way to solve it, and it was quickly, and it was probably that I just needed to listen to them. And it taught me a really good lesson about just literally just shutting the fuck up and listening sometimes. And like it's hard to hear when you're trying to be independent, but sometimes the people who are leading you understand what is happening in a way that you don't. And that's not to discredit what you know in the moment. However, you know, we need mentors for a reason. And that was like the best part of it. And that's why I crave getting back to it, because it's like you don't even understand what it's like to be cared for by a Black woman who's like literally has your hand and we're like, let's fucking go.
I got you. Like, you don't see that I got you in this moment. I got you.
Right. Because it's like, I would never let you fail. You know, like me to you, I would never let you fail. And like anybody who is in those positions, especially great mentorship programs, much like Delta, like, you gonna get that tough love because it's also like it's different.
Yeah, and it's like if you're not going to, no other place is gonna do this with this sort of empathy and with this sort of like, hey, you between me and you can do this and get away with it, and I'm gonna reprimand you softly. But if you do this in this other kind of spaces, you're not gonna get the same reaction. I'm also curious about like when, and this, I'm sure this also did not occur only within like Delta, but when you experience conflict with a peer, how has that looked? How is that something that I find interesting is that sometimes it's not the conflict itself, it's investigating the source of the conflict. Because if you resolve this time around, it will come up again if you don't investigate what it was rooted in and where that was showing up.
Well, and I feel like as a mentor myself, like as somebody, and you can relate to this wholeheartedly, as somebody who actively puts myself in positions to be a mentor and like to give back. You know, it is interesting when a conflict arises because it's like, damn.
Try to avoid this.
Damn, now we gotta talk about it. Now we gotta talk about it. I gotta sit you down. We gotta go through why these things are bad. And it's like, but that is the work of a mentor.
But that's what I'm saying, not as in the mentor.
Oh, but you mean in a pure way. In a pure way.
Because and the reason why I'm specifying that is that in the mentor way, there is a hierarchy that is showing up, right? That can easily, at some point, the person that's lower, who's the mentee, is most likely the one in the wrong.
Yeah.
Right? But in the peer relationship, it's not necessarily sometimes it's that clear cut, but it's not always.
Well, I guess.
So that's why I'm like curious. Like, it's interesting because maybe this might also help thinking about it. It's like, from my experience, peer to peer conflict, it's usually deeper than what is on, like what we're arguing about, what we're disagreeing about, what we're having conflict about. And if we keep going at each other, we're just wasting energy.
Right.
And that might happen, like we might just go back and forth. But if we can step back and say, okay, is it us or is it the system? Is it the system hitting two baddies against each other and creating an environment where we will react to each other like two scared animals because that's kind of where they faced us.
Right.
So here's like, have you had that experience where you get to be like, we are both on the same side of the coin?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and I mean, yes, not with a Black woman, only because you know that experience don't really be happening that much. You don't be having it that much. Like even when we have conflict, like we really try to attack that shit head on. And that's generally as a non-confrontational person, I generally feel like the best plan of attack is head-on with conflict, because conflict is not necessarily conflict, but it is a means to find a solution to a problem that you both experience. And it's just a conversation, right? And anybody can talk to anybody for 5 minutes.
That is, if you want to.
Yeah. So I'm like, remove the bad juju around disagreements, because that's what it is, and I've had to do that work myself. But I would say, I've experienced many a workplace. I've worked many places.
I have held. I keep a job.
I keep a job.
Sometimes 2 at the same time. 3.
That's 3. But I definitely felt like I've been in a position before where I'm like, damn, it is crazy that we are experiencing such things. It's crazy. That is what's happening. That's so wild. If I wasn't me, I would think I was lying. So I was, and like trying to find a common ground with that in somebody else, because it's like, is it safe to talk to you about this? They make it seem like it, maybe not, is it? Like, it seems like I should keep this to myself. Or vice versa. Like, I see things happening and I'm like, I wonder why she's reacting that way. Like, why is this the situation when, like, that's not the situation? And obviously talking, like, super general. But
and that gives you the opportunity to have the conversation of, like, this is what I'm feeling, this is what my version of what you're doing looks like this to me. And then and that's the head-on part. And I think that's really the answer, is resolving it head-on. Obviously, kind of leaving the shade at the door. We love our favorite. No offense.
Yeah, but
no offense. But I'm about to say this. Don't attach any preconceived notion towards it. I'm just about to say these words. And just listen to the words that I'm saying.
They're flat. Yeah.
They literally hold no context. Just listen to those words.
Yeah.
And I think that really, really helps. Yeah. But at the core of it is understanding and addressing, like, where is this conflict coming from? And is it intentionally meant to do this? Meant to cause this fracture? Meant to have us both operating at our 65% because we're so busy using the other percentage to be in conflict?
Because we'll just use us as an example, right? Because that's the only real, like, Black woman, like, peer relationship that I really have
that's long term too.
Yeah,
so we can't run away.
We can't run away from it.
We can't just, like, quit the job and move on. Like, well, don't have to deal with that anymore.
That's not a possibility.
I'll see you on Tuesday's meeting.
We have legal paperwork by us, but I'll see you bright and early. You better be smiling.
And my favorite thing is, like, I'm gonna say this is the clickbait version. I love arguing with my friends, but I love, like, having arguments and issues, because being able to resolve those issues creates a new level of intimacy between them. And that's, like, when you think about, like, deep friendships that mean so much and last through multiple phases of your life, what they usually have in common is that you've gone through multiple conflicts and you've resolved them, and you've gained a better understanding of each other through however that conflict resolved itself, or y'all resolved it.
Right. Like, I always think about it. I think about everything in terms of movie and television, but I always think about those, like, unlikely pair that goes on a wild adventure together, and then they are like, oh, we actually
have so much in common.
We slayed that shit, girl. Let's do it again. And then, like, we best friends at the end of it, and that has felt like the story of surviving a partnership. I won't say surviving, but maintaining and, like, finding areas for it to thrive in. Like, all of those things, it is through intention, and I think we're both really, really big on that. So we believe, say what you do what you say, try to be about it as much as you can, and it's okay to say when you're not. It's really okay to say when you're not, and
especially because sometimes too, sorry to interrupt, but, like, if you don't say where you're not, it turns into resentment, and that's the, like, it's the not resolving the conflict and saying, well, this is actually better off this way, and it's like, actually 3 months later, I hate this person. Why do I hate this person? I wish them the worst. Oh, I'm holding resentment.
I held that in.
I just built up on it. And every time she smiles, every time she does, I'm like, yeah. You don't release yourself of the conflict by ignoring the conflict.
No, you just gotta address it. And I think one of my favorite ways to do it is there's a few ways that I've learned from some of my favorite friends, and they all have different methods on like how to just talk to your friend in a difficult way. One of my favorite ones that I've been using recently is "I love you so much," but and it's like direct eye contact, hand to
physical
skin.
contact. So it's
Like I love you so much.
Here,
You
and
need to
then
hear this
point
message.
this.
And it's effective.
She's hitting you at different touch points. Boom, boom, boom. Mental, emotional, physical.
Like, and it's direct, and it's and you can slide it in at any point in the conversation. And I'm like, I love that. I love that. And what's yours? Do you have one? I have more, so you go ahead.
That's a good one. Me, I don't run from conflict. So it's like I don't
just meeting invite.
Yeah, no, literally, like, can we talk? That's fine. Can we talk? Hey, you free?
And I'm like, wait, is this a good one or a bad one?
But that's the thing. That's part of life. It's most of the time not for me. I guess it's not necessarily changing it. Where I'm not changing the tone. Yeah. Like this is good contact and this is bad contact. Yeah. Right. So it's like it could be either or because it's all.
And you know, as one of my, I was on a journey to be better at conflict resolution for a while. And, you know, I had many people, you have to grow, otherwise you'll be stuck. We can't do that. There's too much thriving to do.
Winning to do.
It's all on the table. We up here snatching. Anyways, part of, what was I saying?
You're talking about conflict, like my way, just straight up.
Yes. That you're a great example of like being direct about where we've said this before, but our favorite way to like really just approach something is respectfully. This is how you have me fucked up.
Yeah,
and like that's what it is, and we're like,
we have said it here.
And like, and that I remember, and I think about it all the time because I'm like, you know, we've had moments where I'm like, oh, I crossed the line with you. I'm so sorry. I would never do that.
Did not realize that was not my intention. But
and like,
I still did that.
Yeah. And like that boundary has always been, or at least for the best of our abilities from both of us, like always been protected. And like that is how relationships grow.
All this to say, argue with your friends more.
Yeah. And you know, take them out for drinks if you have a real issue. Drinks make everything easier.
Yeah. Make the hardest conversations easier to have. As long as you're not. And you know better than me.
Go do something fun.
Do something fun. That's it. Like with us, for a while, we just go pole dancing. Yeah. Like, we put a pole between us. You can have any conversation.
It's fine. Literally any conversation. What you gonna say? We spinning around like
heaving around the pole.
I love you, girl.
Glad that ChatGPT was not around when I was in college. Because I realized too how many. Not in a bad, whatever. I'm not gonna put neutral. How much I'm using AI as a tool, and I feel like everything's always about the words that you use. Everything's always about the words that you use to phrase things. So different. If I say I'm using AI as a crutch, you have a different understanding of my use of it versus if I say I'm using it as a tool. It's simply the same thing. A crutch is a tool, right? But there's a different connotation between those two things. And where I notice is that a lot of us, myself included, are like, it's a tool. It's expanding my skill set. It's making me be able to do more time and more work in less time. But at what cost?
And I think that's
you're not retaining information. Sorry, you're not retaining information at the same capacity.
In the same ways, and it's so funny because when you're the young person learning the new technology, it's amazing. But when you're the professional in the field for even just a little bit, you're like,
are we cooked?
Hold on.
Are we cooked? No, can I? Oh my god. So I teach. I'm a professor at a university. My undergrad students, the first semester I was teaching undergrad, I had them do like a reading discussion as a midterm. When I opened like 3 I think in my class I had like a class of like, it was a small class, like 9. It was like 9 or I don't remember. It was a small class. And I read like the first 3, 5, and then 9. Maybe 1 or 2 were not AI. Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, you got me. Because the thing is that, like, if you're all putting in the same body of text, probably using the same prompts, hey, this is, some of you, maybe you're being smarter, you're putting the brief that I gave you or the email that I sent you and you're putting it into the prompt as well. Either way, you're putting the same body of text and asking it to analyze it. Yeah. How many inputs do you think it's pulling from to give you the material? And so for me, that I was disgusted. I was like, I just made it basically. I didn't mark it because that was just an insult to my intelligence. So I just made it like a pass or fail. Like if you submitted it, you passed that. I was not what. Yeah. So coming along, like running into it in that setting, gave me a different view of using AI as a tool.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like when, girl, different age, when we had the internet for the first time, and they're like, you can't use the computers in your phone to do the
calculations.
And it's like, you know, I think in a lot of ways we have to catch up with this thing that's constantly evolving so freaking quickly. And AI is just like, oh my God, what next? Like, goddamn, okay. Like, shit. But
because literally this week, like 2 days ago, ChatGPT evolved. So actually we'll start from like this part, but you can always take what we just said where it makes sense and move it in. This week, ChatGPT launched a new feature, an updated feature to what it already has. Within the chat itself, you can use it as a visual tool. So what we were doing was like took an image of like a person holding a cup and said, ChatGPT, take this text on this water bottle and make the cup version out of it as a mock-up, whatever. And before, previous forms of AI that we've seen, when it comes to text, it just was not, it was like, looked like alien text, like an alien wrote it. But now it's actually successfully and sharply to a point where it looks like, it's like almost hyper realistic. Like it's not quite as, like there's a slight, like if you have an eye, you can see it, especially if you're the type of person who looks at like real versus render. So you can, if you can tell that difference, you would also be able to see it. It's very slight because a couple of the ones have gotten me, but it successfully moves it over, including the text, including the small text, which is a big shift to how we've been seeing AI. So like usually when we see AI, if we see like an artwork like this and it has text, it does not, it's not readable, it's not legible. So as a result, people are like, oh my God, you don't even need designers anymore because now I can just make my own mock-up. So it's like, okay, relax. But with that new update from ChatGPT, we're seeing AI make giant leaps in such a small amount of time, because this time last year, what GPT was doing was not at the same, clinky. It was still very clanky. But it's so interesting because I'm curious, multiple things. I'm curious about how you're using AI. I will talk about how I'm using AI as a tool, Crutch / tool, and how you're seeing it for the better or for the worse.
Oh, well, I think for me, I mostly use it obviously in like the professional sense. So the way that I have found it most useful recently is I will just write, and I'll just write gibberish. And I'll have it synthesize my thoughts for me and just kind of tell me like, hey, what am I trying to get to here? And can you help me organize my thoughts? Because they often come out like just random shots. And so like that's been really helpful for even understanding how I can think more linearly in certain situations. And so like that's been really great. I also use it because I work in architecture 9 to 5, I also use it to research code a lot, and I use it to pull up information that generally takes so long to find the correct website sometimes, and like it's crazy. And so like finding these codes becomes a lot easier when you can just search pretty straightforwardly.
So when you say code, so some people might not understand what you mean by that.
So all architecture worldwide, but especially in the United States, especially in California, is governed by different rules, and architects generally just refer to them as the code, and that just refers to when we, your architects and designers, are taking the plans that we've drawn you, that you've asked us to draw for you from your ideas, our ideas. We take it to the city and we ask the city to approve this project, and that project is based off of the codes and the ideas, and that's where the like strategy behind architecture all comes into play. And so understanding those codes becomes a critical part of our job, because we're now trying to, a lot of the way that it ends up working is that you take the idea with the knowledge of the codes moving forward, and then once you get to permit, you get really specific, and you're like, these are the ways that we need to make sure that this building complies
with code. And sometimes they clash, sometimes they contradict each other. Sometimes you have to like, this is considering this code and that code, and this is my interpretation of that. Right. And you sometimes have to literally put those references right there for them at the city to say, oh, because they're say, oh, it's wrong for that one. It's like, well, but prior to that one, it says that we can do. It's actually,
and it's a lot, and it gets really text heavy. and it's written in lawyers, so you know,
as an architect and a designer, you're like, you didn't study lawyer.
They don't even ask you to write papers for real in architecture school. So I'm like, what are words? Hold on now, it's been a minute. And so, you know, jumping back into that right after grad school is crazy. But even now, it's really helpful for just understanding what things are, which is even more helpful when you're studying for licensure, which is the path that I'm on. And just like breaking down simple subjects. Like I was studying for contracts, and I couldn't understand what leaning on somebody's, girl, I can't remember the phrase. It was an accounting phrase, and I just remember doing different diagrams to help me understand it, and then I had AI break it down for me again to make sure that I understood it. And I was like, it's hearing things like this in different contexts. It's really helpful, and you can ask it those things. And so I end up finding ways to use it to understand. However, I'm not submitting my work as an assignment. I'm using it to strengthen the knowledge I already know.
Exactly, because you had to learn the knowledge and not the AI. Right. So what's, because I'm like, I'm not saying that I would be better than my student if I had that tool available to me when I was in their position. Something too that's interesting is like, so for me, I will create something, and I would like design something, or I'm like trying to design something, I'm trying to get to an understanding of it, and sometimes I'll put like documents that I have gotten, conversations through my other note-taking software, and I take those conversations, like, this is my understanding of the conversation. What is your understanding of the conversation? Am I doing it this way? Another interesting way is that like we design websites, and the designing website part is fun. Sometimes the domain transfer part of that is not so fun. And sometimes there's like just things that are not working that is like beyond, you've done everything right, and it's still just like does not compute. And as a result, so sometimes I'll be like, this is what is happening, explain it to me like I'm 5. And that's another way that I'm using AI to do that. I haven't necessarily, I have used it in a visual way as well. I'm like, have I used this to create imagery? I have used it for, I'm a girl who uses silhouettes a lot. I love a silhouette, but also a lot of our clients love silhouettes.
They do.
And while I could draw the silhouette, that takes a lot of time. So I can put it in a prompt using another website that we have a subscription to, and be like, I want a silhouette that looks like this. And I can also put like reference images. I'm like, this is the angle I want them to be looking at. And sometimes it gives me 3 arms, but I can fix that in Illustrator.
Right. Delete.
I just need the base form and I'll take it from there. But again, taking it to build on the knowledge that I already have, similar to you. So it is very interesting to think about that. Like, and then something that is my secret shame is I do know like all of the things about the environment. Like I get it. So for me, my way of being mindful is that I'm only using AI for things that matters to me, which I know don't cancel me. But like I'm not going in AI and putting a selfie that I took and be like, make the Studio Ghibli version of this. Like, no shade to y'all that do that, but it's kind of weird. No shade though. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm not wasting the processing power to post this on my Instagram story. Right. I'm doing it. And I'm not saying I'm better. I'm not saying I'm better. I'm actually not. Yeah. I'm just saying that for me, again, when I'm using it to stack alongside the other things that I'm doing.
Right. Unfortunately, it is a powerful tool. Yes. Unfortunately. You know, I believe in robots. So
they're here.
You know, as hard as it is for me, I really do not. I'm not into technology.
It took us a while to get. Ooh, child.
I'm finally here.
I asked you, Jesse. I said, "Do you live in 2025?"
No. I like the 1980s. Seems fun, but I'm just lying.
But yeah, with AI, thinking about it now, do you think it's coming after jobs?
It's hard to say. I feel like what will likely end up happening is like, yeah, a lot of jobs will get automized, but okay. Like, yeah, thank you.
Automation.
Yeah.
Yes.
My brain was like, yes.
Automized that.
That sounds like a party wish. Anyway,
you better.
So in the future, I do see a lot of jobs going to tech just for efficiency because the world is capitalist and that's the reality of Earth and the United States and California. So
especially,
so you know, it is what it is in a sense because it's like we see that coming. However, how do we prepare for that and how do we make sure that people still have value? And I think there's so much value to the human that hopefully AI never has. And I think that is the touch of like the design world, right? Like what I find beautiful and what you find beautiful, while they may be within the same bucket of ideas specifically, they may be very different. And that is something that comes from, I think about Ant-Man and like the microcosms of like universes and just all this space that you occupy as a single being. And that is where art comes from. And it's hard for me to think that separate. Right. And I'm like, you know, I think about learning generally. I promise this is it. I think about learning generally, like in different scales and different speeds. That's one thing I teach in architecture school, like scale. And so learning in a day may be learning a certain subject in algebra. However, learning over 3 years may be learning how to self-advocate. Whereas learning over a lifetime might be learning how to problem solve. Whereas learning over like millennia, right? Like thinking about learning over the lifespan of like all humans. You know, I just like it's taken us so long to get to AI. What happens now?
that's where I'm at with it, where it's like I can't confidently say it's not going to take like a lot of jobs because the leap that it's making in the amount of time that it's making is interesting to me, but also like what is it like? Things that burn brighter faster die faster. So there's another part of that where it's like, is it actually getting to its own termination quicker than it would because as a result of how it's evolving? I don't know.
I think truthfully, humans kind of have to decide. I mean, I know how this sounds, but truthfully, I think like people need to decide the kind of lives that they want to live because if we keep going towards that, then that's what it will be. And like we have to figure out the super high tech world that we're about to enter into.
But I will say, AI can only pull from a database of existing information. And that's still the difference between us and AI. It's not like we are experiencing emotion, experiencing experiences, experiencing life, experiencing love, experiencing heartbreak, experiencing weather changes and how that affects our body and how that affects our internal chemicals. And AI does not have that. And those things affect the things that we create and influence the things that we create. So it's interesting. It's like, again, just speculation to see, is it going to be, interestingly enough, there's a rise in junk journaling. I don't know if you've seen that, which is basically just scrapbooking. They just do it in a notebook and just like keep receipts. It's all it is scrapbooking. It's just scrapbooking got a rebrand. But that's analog. People are going back to the analog. AI can create this scrapbooked image or junk journal page, but AI is not collecting experiences and collecting these objects and artifacts that then go in this journal. And so it's also interesting how, like, as we go high tech, everything swings. It's a pendulum. High tech, so there's going to be a rise in analog experiences. That's part of why people are ditching the apps. People are going outside more. Yes, they're spending more time in their home, but they're still craving that human connection where we were leaning on technology to facilitate, and now we're going the opposite direction of that.
No, absolutely. I think that, and that's exactly was on the buds of saying, my friend. Thank you for knowing, because it's literally that. It's like we know that in life in general, like the pendulum does swing. Like we see people coming, we see people going. We love this too much, then we get tired of it, so we do the opposite. And like that's just how people work. So it's like, when do we get the ick of technology? And it's up to us to decide when that happens. And like how much we feed it is how much it knows.
Exactly.
Granted, there is a fascination with technology, but I also think humans generally are analog creatures. Like, truthfully, I've seen artists like struggle because of the way that we have automized everything.
Oh my God. That's a whole different conversation. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's almost like ageism, along with technology has accelerated ageism in the world. Oh, it's crazy.
There are programs that, just across the platform, like from Procreate to Revit, like all of these programs, right? And you're like, actually, we have to call in the younger generation to do this because we don't know. Or like learning how to draw on Procreate was the wildest experience. Like going from pencil to Apple Pencil.
Oh, and it's
graphite to Apple.
That's supposed to be building on graphite, but it's a whole different experience.
Down to the slight rumble that graphite used to have. Like, it's crazy. So it's like,
it's time to sharpen.
Yeah. I'm like, it's all over my hands. I gotta take a shower now. Like, and I think that
the way you draw as a result of avoiding smudging.
Yeah. Like humans being humans, and like all the weird little quirks that we have, and like the little things, like you likely, at least in my lifetime, won't get that with computer anything. Because I think we recognize the like sanctity of it in a sense, because those are our most peaceful moments when we have it with ourselves or others. And it's like when your phones are down at the table, we're just laughing. We're crying,
living
laughing, life. And I think that the more we get outside, the more we remember that, the more we like ditch these things. Because how often do our electronics break and we're like, oh, okay,
fine. Right now I'm trying to retrain my brain. I'm trying to reduce my screen time, especially with like social media. Just again, the world, because y'all gonna see this on social media, but very meta, very whoa, third eye open. But I'm trying to rewire my brain into where I'm spending my time. Because yes, I love doing this motion. I love it. I'm addicted to it. I love it bad. But to be able to do more and actually have my brain computing more, creating things more, I need to create that space for it.
Absolutely. And it's nice. You see a lot of people taking social breaks. I think that's a good way to take a step away from it.
Be in front of your relationship with technology.
Have a little crafts table, whatever that means for you. It could be card games even.
We're going analog. We can definitely say we're going analog, baby.
Yeah. 10 ways to go analog right now. Can you do it? 5.
Ooh, okay. Picnic dates. Scrapbooking, actually getting a photo album and putting your Polaroids in there. Oh my God, I'm running out. That was only 3. Painting your nails by yourself, not just buying press-ons from the internet. calling your friend, not a FaceTime call, just an audio call while y'all do different things. Oh my god. Going to exercise with your friend, doing something as that's an activity where there's no phones involved, but you're actively doing something, so exercise class, literally yoga, anything. Oh my god.
You're almost there. She's
painting. Painting event. You don't have to actually, like, you don't have to pay to go to a paint and sit. You can just sit in your home and grab a piece of paper and draw even. It doesn't have to drawing with your friends. Making food together. Not like going to like Maslow's hierarchy. What gardening, in whatever way that means something to you. 10, I think.
Good job. That's
kind of hard.
You did great, girl. You paused Max for like 3 seconds.
My brain was like, what else is he?
I love stressing her out.
Do that exercise with yourself. What are 10 ways you can go analog? I love that. You wanna? Well, I mean, I feel like I took up all the ideas.
No, because I was gonna say something else. Like, let's see. Go to the movies.
Go to the movies.
Go on a walk. Pet some animals. Always pet some animals. Build some furniture.
Build some furniture. Design it because you can draw. Oh, ooh.
Right. Let's see. Ooh, yeah. Let's see. Take something apart. Take a pen apart.
Her brain. This is why I love her. Because literally, if you take something apart, you get a new understanding.
It's right. I'm like, look at all of these things. You flip a book, just flip through any book. Obviously, picture.
Okay. Like empty notebook?
Yeah, I mean, I do enjoy flipping through my old notebook and just like reading old shit.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, but it's not an empty one.
Oh, no. Yeah, something with content of interest to you. Go shopping.
You spent, girl. How is that analog?
Funny how I snuck that in there.
Y'all tell us. The shopping count is going analog.
Yes.
Well, go to the store barter.
And you start touching all the stuff. And
so okay, you don't have to cop anything, like buy something.
No, but you do have to go and touch things or
like
okay. You have to like.
So you can be window shopping.
You can be window shopping.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you're swiping that card, baby. That's not analog.
For cash. Yeah. Look, shop however you want, bro. Shop.
As long as you shop ethically.
Yeah. Yes, ethically.
Okay. Shopping. I think that was this finger. That was
this one. You might be right. Okay. Go to the grocery store and get your food yourself.
Cool. Crazy how that is considered going out.
Right. Well,
yes. Instacart.
Shout out to Instacart. Okay, now we're getting into the weeds of it. Let's see. What else is analog? Write yourself a journal entry. And do a Sudoku puzzle.
Bitch, she did it. Bitch.
20 options right there.
20 options. That's a post. That's a separate. 20 ways to go analog. Oh my god, I love that. I love that.
Good job. Yours are she said, "Oh, I don't know." Awesome. It's like, damn, I don't even know that.
I love that. Okay.
And today we are thankful to pour up to what, Toby?
Being bad bitches in coexistence. Coexisting bad bitchery. Yeah, I like that.
Coexisting bad bitchery.
Yeah.
Click, my friend.
Pouring up to that. And that is episode 5. Period. Cool.